G'day everyone, welcome back to this week's fishing report. There's been a lot of fish being caught around Sydney over the last week and last weekend, so let's get straight into it. The tuna again have been absolutely going berserk off Sydney, absolutely bunter. There's fish in excess of 100 kilos being caught offshore, trolling around, deep diving hard bodies around the shelf out off Sydney have been producing some really nice tuna. So if tuna is your go, they are definitely on the bite. So make sure you got all your gear ready to head out and go target a few really nice bluefin tuna. The snapper as well, over the last weekend we had some pretty decent conditions to be able to go out offshore and target some snapper, both in our inshore reefs and in our deeper reefs. They fished pretty well over the last week and last weekend. Fish in excess of 70 centimetres actually being caught in the late afternoon sessions off Cronulla. Also out in our deeper reefs, people have been slow pitch jigging for our snapper using 20, 40, 60 gram jigs, slow pitching them into 40 to 60 metre reefs and producing some really nice snapper, particularly towards the middle end of the day. And again, like I've spoken about over a few episodes, the snapper will go and move deeper throughout the day. So fishing really shallow the early part of the day is really beneficial and late in the afternoon. But then as the sun seems to rise higher and higher and become towards midday, the fish will move out into the deeper parts of the ocean. So deeper reefs, 30 metres, 40, 50, 60, 70 metres of water, and find some cover in there. Not only just some cover, but some nice bait as well. In the river system, salmon are still really consistent. The only thing with salmon, people have been catching a lot of them over the last week, but the only thing is they're having to use their sounder to find the schools of salmon. They're not busting up on the surface like they have been over the last month. They've now worked into the deeper parts of our river system. So in Botany Bay, our 8 to 9 metres have been finding some really good schools around the runways. In the Port Hacking, our Southwest Arm and Lily Pilly have been producing some really nice schools of salmon. Dropping your plastics down into those schools and working them through the schools have been producing some really nice fish. If you're not a lure fisherman, dropping baits down as well, I've also seen some really consistent captures of salmon over the last week. So the weather for this weekend is actually looking pretty good. We've got some nice clear days. The only issue I can see from the weather for the weekend is our swell. So Saturday we've got a 2 metre swell. For me, like I've said in previous episodes, that's going to be a big no-go for me to be able to go out offshore. 2 metre swell is just too big. It's just too hard for my boat to be able to manoeuvre around to spots and fish comfortably. So it's not going to be my go. But the positive thing about Saturday is the wind is very low for the whole day. We have a very light westerly breeze across the whole day. Looking further on, again, like I've said in previous episodes, there's some really key things that we need to know about when we're looking at what times of the day to fish and being able to marry up bite windows, our 6 bite windows, to making them 3 out of 3 bite windows. So what we actually have on Saturday is a 3 out of 3 bite window again. We have a moonrise, a sunrise, and a tide change, all within 2 hours of each other. So that Saturday morning, particularly in the rivers, out offshore, if you've got a boat, like I said, that you can actually head out offshore and go do your fishing out offshore comfortably, go do it. But if not, fishing the rivers, I would strongly suggest to be staying in the rivers. Fishing the rivers is going to be hopefully producing a lot of fish, because again, we have those 3 different bite windows coming together, particularly in the morning. So making sure that we're out there nice and early and ready to fish, and we're well prepared for that morning bite, because it could only happen for 2.5 hours. It might even only go for an hour. So making sure you're there for that bite window and prepared will be the key. Again, moving further along into Saturday, we've got a tide change around midday. Again, that's another bite window to look at. And then in the afternoon, we have a tide change along with our sunsets. We have a 2 out of 3 afternoon and a 3 out of 3 morning. This Saturday is looking phenomenal to be able to go out and have a fish. Again, with your river systems, use your tides. Look at what tides we actually have and work them to your advantage. So with our tide changes for Saturday, we have a high tide in the morning. What I would be doing is looking for our edges. I wouldn't be going up onto the flats in the middle of winter. There's not a lot of action in the flats off Sydney in the middle of winter, mainly because the fish want to find that consistent warmer temperature. Generally, that's on our edges and our deeper parts of our river system. So you'll find a lot of those fish will just congregate in our deeper holes in the river system. They will go along the edges, particularly towards high tide, to try and find a feed, but most of the time they'll be hanging out around those deeper edges. So again, looking for drop-offs with a bit more depth rather than 2 to 5 meter drop-off, maybe looking for that 5 to 10 meter drop-off will be able to help you find some really, really nice consistent captures on Saturday morning and Saturday afternoon. So moving on to Sunday. Sunday is looking, again, really, really nice to be able to go out and have a fish. It will be overcast for the majority of the day, so there might be some light rain about, but for the majority, we've got, again, a nice light westerly breeze. Similar to Saturday, Sunday morning is our 3 out of 3 bite window. Then we have around about a 2 o'clock tide change and about 7:30, 8 o'clock tide change towards the nighttime. So for Sunday, I'm particularly focused on the morning, whereas Saturday, I guess because the tides are pushed a little bit later, we can have a couple of different bite windows, but Sunday, definitely that morning tide change and that mid-afternoon tide change is what we're looking at. But specifically talking about the morning, our swell is around 1.4 to 1.5 meters. Again, that's probably going to be right on the limit for me and my boat and to be able to go out offshore. So what I might do when it's definitely on my limits, and that's being ultra cautious as well. Like my limit could be a lot bigger than that, but I choose to be ultra cautious and I'd rather come home safe and know that I'm fishing in safe areas rather than risking it just for one fish, because in the end, that's not going to be worth it. Your life is definitely not worth one fish. So what I might do is actually just poke my head out to the front of the Port Hacking River there. I'll poke my head out early in the morning, see what the conditions are like, and if I feel like they're not going to be as favoursome towards me, then I'll probably head straight back into the river and fish the river. But if they are quite favourable, I'll definitely head out towards our shallow inshore reefs and fish them to about 8:30, 9 o'clock in the morning, because we have sunrise, a moonrise, and a tide change. The last one of those 3 in chronological order will be our tide change. It will be a sunrise, then a moonrise, and then a tide change at about 8:30. So about 9:30, I'll probably stop fishing for snapper in shallow, and then I might head out deep depending on the conditions, or I might head back in the river if the conditions have worsened on Sunday. Again, if you're not going to head out offshore on Sunday, the river system, if you sound up any type of bait school, there will most likely be salmon hanging pretty close by. If you're a bait fisherman, dropping your baits down into those salmon schools, you are going to have the best fun. Fish in excess of 70 centimeters. You know, that's 3-4 kilo salmon that would just absolutely fight so hard. And yeah, it'll be one of the best fights you'll have all winter. So just before we leave, I thought I'd talk to you about Reelcast this week. Reelcast this week has released episode 2 of our podcast series. Episode 2 is none other than the fishing legend Steve Starling, a pioneer in Australian fishing, particularly soft plastic fishing. His angler profile has been released. It's up on YouTube, and it's also out on all podcast apps. So if you search Reelcast on any podcast platform, and if you want to watch the video version, it is up on my YouTube channel right now for you guys to watch. Next Tuesday, the full episode will be released again on all podcast platforms and on YouTube for the video version. So don't forget to subscribe to Reelcast on any podcast platform to be able to make sure you are kept up to date when it gets released, and you'll be the first person to listen to it. Also, 7 Seas Apparel. I'm wearing the 7 Seas Apparel hoodie today and cap. 7 Seas Apparel have everything that you could ever need to be able to head out fishing in comfort and style. Don't forget to go to 7seasapparel.com. Use ReelFishing10, that's REEL Fishing 10, to save yourself 10% off anything 7 Seas Apparel. But that's going to do it for this week's fishing report. I hope you all, again, go out, catch a few nice fish. Let me know how you went. Again, please make sure that you're checking your weather apps before heading out on the weekend. The weather may change from what I have spoken about previously. And as always, like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.